are now locked in and listening to The Issue.
This guy is a franchise quarterback, and no, I don't want to hear any pushback on that.
It feels like a top 10 roster to me. It feels like it can win a championship.
This is The Issue.
Yo, what's up? We are back. It is The Issue. It is Thursday, May 4th, and oh, do we have a loaded show for you guys today. You can catch us on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon Prime Video to watch the show, and also listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And it is a loaded one today, especially for the NFL fan. The draft, fantastic. I know I'm spending tomorrow, Cinco de Mayo, just celebrating, and just ravishing in, pretty sure that's a word, the Steelers draft picks. The 2023 draft was fantastic, and that's how we're going to start the show this week. Recapping the NFL draft. Tim's rant, that's what it's going to be geared towards. Specific teams, picks. You can see the direction that they want to move. We'll talk about all that in the first segment. And we're going to finish off the first segment with another edition of Hits and Misses, as we always do. Into the second segment, though, we're going to go over the winners and losers of the draft, and there were a bunch of both, plenty of both, and we're going to break that all down for you, followed by the news to close out the second segment. And then in the third, kind of a surprising thing, right? Anthony Richardson goes before Will Levis. Will Levis slips all the way to the second round, something that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. I know we didn't see that coming, but that will be the show for you guys today. Pumped about it. Pumped. I mean, this is probably the first draft where I just sat there and
I watched almost all of it.
I watched the entire first round for sure. Like all 31 of the first picks were fantastic. Some clear winners stood out to me. The Philadelphia Eagles killed it again. That's 2 years in a row now. They just really seem to have the direction going there in Philadelphia.
Well, I mean, there's a reason Howie Roseman's a top. He's regarded as like a top 5 GM at minimum in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, to take Carson Wentz and then he gets hurt, and Nick Foles, you win a Super Bowl with that nucleus, Doug Peterson, that nucleus, and then say, now scrap it, let's start over, and then get back to another Super Bowl. Like that's pretty impressive. Anyway, actions speak louder than words, right? We know this. I've said it a bunch, and we've said it a bunch. But when people do things, take that as their intention, right? Take that action as their intention. I can tell you all day long, you know what? I love Joe Biden. He's doing a great job. If I wanted you to think that. But then if you look at, I don't know, my voting history, my social media, you'll know that I think he's kind of a nutcase, can't finish a sentence. Right? But I could tell you anything that you want, but my actions are going to say what I really feel, what I really mean, what my real intentions are. Right? NFL teams this weekend, and thus far in the offseason, are going to do the same thing. They're going to tell you exactly what they think, feel, and intend to double down on going forward. For example, let's start with the hometown Pittsburgh Steelers, right? We had Mike DeCastro on right before the draft. We were back and forth on if the Steelers should draft or will draft offensive line or secondary, right? He was leaning more towards secondary. At the time, I was more offensive line. He might have swayed me. Nonetheless, they go offensive line, right? Mike said this, and I agree. We're going to find out what the Steelers think of Dan Moore. And we did find out what they think of Dan Moore. Backup. He's a backup left tackle, right? Because they're going to go out, they're going to draft the left tackle for the future, Broderick Jones. Right? They need an upgrade. Trade up. Let's go get one. Broderick Jones, here you go. Probably left tackle for the next 8+ years if he pans out, which I think he will. Right? I like the pick. They tell you exactly what they intend to do. Kenny Pickett, young offense, surround him with pieces. Surround him with pieces, right? Protect him. The picket fence, as some may say. The Packers, right? They basically said, life without Aaron, I think we're going to be just fine. I think we're good. First round, we're going to get a pass rusher. We don't want this kid to have to win shootouts, but then we'll go get 3 wide receivers, 2 more tight ends in the later rounds. Not to mention they're going to double down and they're going to extend Jordan Love 1 year, $22 million. Not a ton, but I mean the kid started 1 game, right? That's a nice payday for a singular game starter, right? In which he didn't even play that well in that start, but that's besides the point. They're going to double down. They said, life without Aaron. Hey, Aaron, you have fun in New York. You go to all the Rangers games and all the Knicks games you want. We're good here. We're good here. That's what they're telling you. Right? How about the Eagles? Right? The Eagles say, ooh, Jalen Carter, one of the top talents in the draft, if not the most talented player. Some character issues. But we'll take a flyer because we have star quarterback, check. Veterans in place, check. Strong presence at head coach, check. Great mentors at the exact same position group as Jalen Carter, check. Fletcher Cox. a bunch of his college buddies to make him feel as comfortable as possible in a new system, new city, all that. Check. Why not take a chance on what many view as the most talented player in the draft? They're telling you, we have the cornerstones, let's roll the dice, let's go big or go home. This is our conference for the taking, not just division, conference for the taking. I think they have the most talented roster. Right? Totally Howie Roseman makes complete sense, right? That's right up his alley, totally respected. How about the Colts? Well, they basically said, hey, could we go get Will Levis? Yeah. Yeah, but do we have a really, really talented young offensive coach in Shane Steichen? Absolutely. We have a really nice run game, and it'll be even better under Steichen because we saw what he did with Philly. It'll be a better run team this year. We have a scrappy defense, decent culture. We could take in a project. Right? We could take in Anthony Richardson. We'll be just fine with him as our quarterback. He's basically, you could argue, a more talented version of Jalen Hurts. And Steichen made Jalen Hurts the top 7 quarterback in the league. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. Needs a lot more polishing, a lot more refinement. But that's what they're telling you. They said, hey, we really like our coach. We really like what he brings to the table. Let's let him take this project, polish him up. In a year, we could have the best quarterback in our division. Trevor Lawrence is better, but that's what they think, right? That's what they intend to do. That's what they're going to double down on. Right? We'll talk more about how I feel about some of the team's drafts, good, bad, ugly, right? Some winners and losers. But my point is, believe it when teams show you and tell you exactly what they're all about. Right? If you're thinking, how's my team going to be this year? What's their goal? What direction are they going? Just follow the breadcrumbs. Believe exactly what they show you. Teams will tell you exactly what they intend to do, exactly what they're going to double down on, exactly what they think is the cornerstone for the future. All these teams did. All of them. From top to bottom. I mean, even the Falcons said, hey, rookie running back last year was second in rushing. No. We're going to be bad this year, but Bijan Robinson and Caleb Williams next year, now we're talking. Right now we're talking. So they tell you exactly what they intend to do. They're going to suck this year, and they know it. They don't care. They don't care about Bijan Robinson next year when he puts up 1,600 yards and 14 touchdowns. It's going to look like a good pick. It's going to look like a good pick. So just believe teams when they tell you. They're going to show you exactly what they are. Exactly what they are. You just believe them. That's it.
And you could really see that, like you said, just echoed throughout the entirety of the draft, from round 1 to round 7.
Yeah.
And nobody hid behind anything. And I really like the picks pretty much all across the board. I think they all addressed desperate needs.
Yeah.
I mean, the Steelers, for example, first round pick, you need somebody that's going to be great blocking in space. Broderick Jones is fantastic blocking in space. He's going to be able to pull, go open up some lanes for Najee on the outside. Finally going to be able to maybe move the ball a little bit this season.
Didn't let up a sack all last year.
No.
I mean, I know it's college, but still.
Just protect the hell out of Kenny Pickett.
Love that.
And then what else did they tell you? Oh, well, we do need some help with the secondary, so we're going to go draft Joey Porter Jr. Yeah. Regardless how you feel about him or how you think he's going to pan out in the NFL, it's what they're telling you that they need.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, I agree.
All around, great draft. Great draft. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to be staying on the draft. Most of it, that's actually going to be where we're going with hits and misses here. So let's go hits and misses. Let's hit number 1 here. We said it before the draft. It's weird because it's like dumb teams get dumber, smart teams get smarter, right? So
it's all amplified.
The Falcons, I get that they might have a plan. I don't understand how after 1 year after you have the second leading rookie running back in total yards, you go waste a top 10 pick on Bijan Robinson with a roster with a ton of holes. There's a ton of holes on this roster. And you go get a position that doesn't have a ton of value when you already have good value at the position. I just don't understand it. I don't think it's going to win them many games. Good luck on that. Maybe, after you suck, you get Caleb Williams, and then it's a good tandem in the backfield. But I don't see it right now. It doesn't make a ton of sense from a value proposition or a team-building proposition as well.
I mean, we did say that the draft will show you the team's direction, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right direction.
Exactly. Exactly.
A lot of people take really bad advice, take really bad direction, and I don't really see that pick panning out all that much.
I think he's going to be a good player, but I don't think at number 8 overall with a roster,
first-round guy,
with a roster with a ton of holes, I don't understand it. I don't understand. That's different round, much different because it's going to be less money, less important. But the Rams going and drafting Stetson Bennett in the 4th round
made no sense.
What are you doing?
Made no sense.
They have significant holes in the roster. They could use a ton of offensive line depth. I could give you 4 different wide receivers they could have gotten in that same 4th round that would have been way more, that would have started or at least gotten significant playing time and been a contributor day one.
Yeah.
And you go get Stetson Bennett.
And as much as I love Stetson Bennett, I mean,
Max Duggan was still out there.
He was a shock that he even worked in college, let alone you're going to go play for the Los Angeles Rams now?
There's no way. His ceiling is a backup. His ceiling, right? He's most likely a third-string quarterback. His ceiling is a backup. Max Duggan would have been a better pick there. If you want to go get a quarterback, Max Duggan was around in the 7th round.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense for me. Miss number 1 here. Somehow, some way, I don't understand how, but this show, we become big fans of the Lions here.
The NFC North treats us well.
Yeah, we kind of like the Lions. We like their direction. I like Dan Campbell. I like Jared Goff more than most. I think they have decent offensive pieces. But wow, what an awful draft. I mean, to go get Jahmyr Gibbs that early, and then to go get Jack Campbell, an off-ball linebacker, you go get the 2 least valuable positions in all of football.
Yeah.
A running back, not even a 3-down running back, just a pass-catching running back, basically, and an off-ball linebacker. What are you doing? I mean, it made no sense. You want to talk about value? Made absolutely no sense. Again, a roster that we both like, but agree that there are significant holes on defense, like secondary that which they could have addressed, like pass rusher that which they could have addressed. I know they got Hutchinson, but I would have liked to see him go get another one.
Having a good number 2 never hurt.
You could have went and got a really nice middle linebacker in the 2nd, 3rd round.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go get Jack Campbell or whatever. I think he'll be a fine player. Is he going to impact winning as much as another player that they could have got at that position? Absolutely not. Terrible value. Don't get it at all.
It's just upsetting because, like, this had to be the year where the Lions kind of really hit on their draft picks, right?
100%.
You have Dan Campbell. He kind of gets the first, or I guess second draft under his belt. But you have to start building something here, right? You have to start... You have to get the pieces, and you have to see those pieces pan out for you if you want to keep your job in Detroit. And I just don't see it. I don't see it. But you're right. I feel like another miss for us is that we've become a big fan of the Lions on this show. I don't know how it happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't intended whatsoever.
Not intended. Hit number 2 here. So we nailed the top 3 picks of the draft. Yay for us. Granted, we did have Arizona staying at 3 and drafting Will Anderson. They trade with Houston, who still drafts Anderson. So we had Young, Stroud, Anderson, 1, 2, 3. So hoorah for us. I feel like that was a fairly easy one, though, to get. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I feel like that was pretty easy. But nonetheless, we got to give ourselves a little pat on the back there. You kidding me? Come on now.
It was good. Hey, it was better than last year's draft. That's improvement.
Did we go 0 for something?
That's improvement over 32 last year.
0 for 30, some of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's not good. All right, Mr. Number 2 here. I had Michael Mayer. You had Michael Mayer as a top 15 player in the draft. I really thought he was a really dynamic prospect. Pretty nice down the seam. Reminded me a lot of like a Kittle down the seam. A nice possession receiving tight end, as well as an elite end line blocker. But he slips down to the 2nd round. Raiders pick him up at 34 overall or something like that.
I think it might be a little bit of a steal.
Yeah, I thought he'd be a top 15 to 20 pick. I guess he wasn't, but I agree. I think he's going to be arguably the steal of the draft. I think it's really good for a team with a average at best offensive line, but likes to pound the rock. Right? So you're going to have a really nice blocking tight end. You replace Darren Waller. You have a pretty good combination now. Renfro, Adams, and Michael Mayer. That's a good nucleus of weapons. So not bad. And
let's not, you got Jimmy G. Jimmy G loves his tight ends.
Serviceable.
Loves his tight ends.
Absolutely.
Having a nice check down guy like that is going to be huge, especially for early success, for the easy stuff, for the easy throws, for the throws you have to make. It's going to be nice to have them.
Yeah, maybe even a little 3rd down security blanket, red zone
type
guy.
Right. Yeah.
Hit number 3 here. I've never understood the Stephen Curry slander. I don't get it. I think he's a top 10 player of all time. Won't hear an argument against it. Sorry, just won't. Goes on the road, loudest crowd in the NBA so far, except for except for the Warriors themselves. Drops 50 on Sacramento's head. We just watched the highlights. It's ridiculous. I watched it live. First of all, I had to watch it again. It's a masterclass in basketball. It's over the top. It's pick and roll. It's movement without the basketball. It's elbow jumpers, bump, step back, elbow jumper. It's hezzy, drive to the lane, finish with the left, finish with the right, dish out to guys. I mean, it was a masterclass on how to play point guard while also scoring in the NBA, putting the team on your back. Clay couldn't hit shots. Wiggin was inefficient. Dre was bad offensively per usual. Poole wasn't scoring with ease like he can tend to do. It was all on him in Game 7. Dynasty about to crumble at the hands of a much younger team. all-time stuff from Stephen Curry. I mean, that is an all-time performance. Sets a record for the most amount of points in a Game 7. It was really, really impressive stuff.
Yeah, I was just about to say, we watched the highlights of every single point scored by Steph Curry before we just came on here. Fantastic. I'm not even a big basketball guy. You know that. I'm sure any viewer that has watched us for any amount of time knows that. And, I mean, I'm just impressed.
It didn't take a basketball fan to see that.
No,
to see that it was masterful performance.
You don't have to know the X's and O's all that well. You don't have to have a great understanding of the game. But when you watch highlights like that, you can tell that some guys are just different, and some guys just set themselves apart. And Steph Curry is that guy.
Yeah, I agree. Miss number 3 here. I thought Will Levis would go 4 over Richardson. I thought that was the better pick. I think Levis is slightly more refined. I think he's a little bit sharper in terms of you looked at his S2 scores, his academic resume, right? All that. Reminded me a little bit of like an Aldi brand Andrew Luck if you wanted to talk yourself into it, right? If you're like looking through that lens, and if you have that kind of bias, like the Andrew Luck bias, which the Colts I figured would have, then that would kind of make more sense. But instead they go Richardson. I'm not sure how it pans out. I'm really not. We'll kind of talk a little bit about that more in the third segment. But nonetheless, we were wrong there. Like I said, we had Levis going 4, Richardson slipping a little bit, ends up reversing. Richardson goes 4, Levis slips a little bit. But, yeah.
I mean, it was shocking, but I guess it does really pan out. Colin Cowherd talked about it, and he even referenced, I think, what holds more weight than just his opinion on the matter is the fact that he does have NFL executives and a coach that have both expressed their concerns with, like, the flexing and mirror type pictures and the biceps,
the bravado.
That's not what you need to be a quarterback in the NFL, and that's not the mental frame or standpoint that these teams want you coming into their organizations with. They don't want it to be all about you. At the quarterback position, you have to have, a kind of more. I don't know. I want to say like
more Joe Burrow-esque.
Yeah,
a little bit more quiet assassin.
Right. Just
has that savagery, has that swagger, but is business-like about it.
Get your damn job done, right? You don't have to be taking pictures in the bathroom mirror. Don't be doing that. Do you have a fitness account? I don't think you do.
He doesn't.
So you're playing quarterback. You're trying to play quarterback in the NFL. We can chill with the pictures in the bathroom mirror. I do agree there.
You definitely don't post them, dude. I mean, it just doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, it's kind of weird to me.
Yeah, if you want to keep them for like personal progress, fine, by all means. But like, what are we doing posting them?
Especially when like they know that, like that that's a discussion in the league right now. Is like your size, your arrogance, your size, your rigidity, like your stiffness, like in game. So I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Well, Will Levis loves Will Levis, and he slipped to the second round. But we are about to get into the second segment. In the second segment, we will have the winners and losers of the draft with the news, kind of parlayed in there with it. So don't go anywhere. You're not going to want to miss it.
Welcome in, second segment, The Issue. It is the 4th of May now, Thursday. We appreciate you listening, whether that be listening on Apple Music, Amazon Music,
Apple
Podcasts. Yeah, I mean, just any of those, really. If you're watching YouTube, Amazon Prime Video, right? Isn't there something like that? Spotify you could watch. So, no matter how you're watching, listening, appreciate you stopping by. If you are just tuning into this video, go watch the first video, or with the first segment. We had hits and misses, a little rant on the NFL draft, kind of talking about that. We're going to talk more about that here, even more about that in the third segment. Of course, we will have news to round out this second segment here. But like I said, we're talking a little bit of winners and losers of the draft here first. So, to be clear, let me preface this.
Yeah.
This doesn't mean that I think these are the 3 best drafts and the 3 worst drafts. I think these are just notable teams that we should probably discuss. I'll give you a hint. One right now, Pittsburgh, right? Hometown team. And, to be honest, we care more about them. Let's be real here. And like losers, like we talked a little bit about Detroit. We'll talk about some Cleveland. So we'll get into all that. Let's start, though, with the winners. Let's go Pittsburgh for one. I think they killed the draft. First of all, so here's our top 5 picks. You'd see up on the screen here. We got Broderick Jones, Joey Porter, Keanu Benton, the defensive lineman from Wisconsin, Darnell Washington, big tight end from Georgia. So now I think we have 2 really solid tight ends with Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. Both can block and both can catch the ball. I think Muth's a little bit better at the whole receiving thing. But Darnell Washington's certainly capable. And then, of course, Nick Herbig, who is a really, really nice edge rusher. I think he'll fit in rotationally, right? So you'll have like Watt, Highsmith, Herbig, you could argue, be your third pass rusher in there in some packages. So I really like the pick up there. Like I said, we talked a little bit in the first segment. The Steelers are telling you what their direction is, right? Who are we building around? Kenny Pickett, George Pickens. Obviously, we've signed Minka and TJ Watt, right? Those are probably our 4 cornerstones right now. Like young, build around for the next 5 years, right? Obviously, like Cam Hayward, right? Definitely a cornerstone, but he's on his way out. He's probably got another year or two of really high-end play. So, he's a leader, not necessarily a cornerstone for the future, right? So that's our nucleus. What does that nucleus need? So for Kenny Pickett, you got to protect him. That's for one. And also with Najee Harris, you want to run the football.
Yeah, it's going to open up so much with Broderick Jones.
Absolutely. You want to run the football. On the flip side, right, so you have TJ Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick. So you have a guy at both of the really key levels. What you don't have, those a guy on the outside to lock somebody up. Then you go get Joey Porter too, right? We talked about how Cam Hayward is aging. How do you replace him? You go get a defensive lineman, Keanu Benton, with your third pick. I think the Darnell Washington pick is, I don't think it adds a ton of value right now, but I do think there's something to be said for the 2 tight end systems, right? We saw back in New England back in the day before Aaron Hernandez decided to go start committing felonies and killing people. But we saw that with him and Gronk, right? So they were a dynamic 2 tight end group. We see it happen a lot. So I like the pickup there. And again, Herbig, who we signed his brother in free agency. So a little bit of family action there. You can't go wrong.
That's always the Steelers too.
Yeah, absolutely. They get what, Hayward. We had the Watt brothers. So Edmonds for a little while, the Edmonds brothers. So I really like the picks there for the Steelers.
So do I. I think it solves a lot of problems.
I agree. Let's go to the other side of the state here. Let's go with the Philadelphia Eagles. First of all,
another big winner for sure.
Yeah, out of their top 5 picks, they go get 3 Georgia guys. They get Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and then Keely Ringo there at 5. Tyler Steen and Sidney Brown sandwiched in between there. Jalen Carter. First of all, I think he's the most talented player in the draft outside of Bryce Young. I do think Bryce Young, because it's a more valuable position, and I do think he's a beautiful thrower of the football, is a more talented player that can make more of an impact now. But Jalen Carter is a close second. Reminds me a lot of like a J.J. Watt coming out. Like big, really quick.
Yeah.
Really quick. Not quite as like stout as an Aaron Donald. A little bit taller, a little bit thinner, but quick. He's a guy that can give you 12 sacks from the interior defensive line, which is a really impressive number for that position. Nolan Smith reminds me a lot of a TJ Watt. Speed on the edge. He's going to bend the corner. Could be susceptible against bigger, stronger tackles because he's not a bigger, stronger athlete like a Myles Garrett off the edge.
But he can outmaneuver the hell out of him.
Right. So the speed is where he's going to get you there. Steen's a center, I believe, maybe a guard. So getting depth there. Jason Kelce, we know, is probably going to retire after either this year or next. So that makes a ton of sense. Get depth there, develop him. I want to say Sidney Brown's a DB maybe. I don't really care for that pick. It's a fine pick. I'm very indifferent about that pick. Love the Keely Ringo.
Yeah.
I think he could have been as high as a late second round pick. He falls a little bit, so great value there. The Eagles drafting what they need, staying true to their board, not overreaching, right? You only move up 1 spot for Carter, so staying true to your plan, not reaching. I love the draft for the Eagles.
And somehow they dominated that much without taking any reaches. And then they go outside of the draft and make some great free agent signings.
Yeah, D Swizzle, they go trade for DeAndre Swift.
DeAndre Swift was a huge pickup. Now they actually have a very functional backfield. I feel like at times it kind of got into a little bit of like a stalemate. You just kind of things plateaued there.
Yeah, and it was it was very Jalen Hurts dependent.
Yes, and now you add a guy like DeAndre Swift who's just going to run all over people.
Yeah, especially when you're paying Hurts that type of money, you don't want him to have to run the ball a ton. So that makes sense. Let's go with the Seattle Seahawks, the third and final winner here. I do think Christian Gonzalez was the better pick, but I do like Devin Witherspoon as well. So it makes a little bit of sense, right? So for what they need, they have Tariq Woolen, who is a longer, lankier DB, which is more what Gonzalez is. Witherspoon's a little bit more physical, a little bit more like in your face, can guard a little bit of the more physical receivers as opposed to the taller receivers, right? Like that you would want from a lankier DB. So in their system, it fits for what they already have. Jackson Smith and Jigba rounds out what might be the best receiving core in the NFC. DK Metcalf on the edge, Tyler Lockett on the edge, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba in the slot is going to be great.
Dudes. They got dudes.
Derek Hall, I thought was a first-round pick, falls to the second. He's a nice edge rusher out of Auburn, love that pick. Charbonnet, the running back, not great for fantasy owners of Kenneth Walker. Obviously, nobody's drafted yet, but going forward. Kenneth Walker might dip a little bit in fantasy ratings, but I don't care. That's a really, really good two-headed monster in the backfield. And then Anthony Bradford, I want to say he was like a center or something like that. Whatever, good depth there.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Let's switch over to the losers, though. I'll start with who I think is the least of the losers here.
Okay.
Again, this is not the three worst drafts, just notable teams. So let's start with the least loser of the three. The Detroit Lions. I hated their first two picks. I don't like Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell at the slots they drafted them at. But Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, Hendon Hooker for your next three picks. I like Laporta as the tight end out of Iowa, I believe, and we know Iowa's a tight end factory. Brian Branch, who a lot of people had a first-round grade on, safety out of Alabama, really nice pickup. And I thought Hendon Hooker was the third or fourth best quarterback in the draft. I thought he was better than Richardson. So I like that pickup as well. So again, the value early on I thought could have been better. I thought they could have, this was a B- draft, but it very easily, if they would have just went for good value in the first two picks, it could have been an A+ draft. That's why for me it's a loser, because it was right there. It was they had it all there, and they in total Detroit Lion fashion blew the first round. Blew it.
Yeah, and well, at least it's kind of like a mini hit here too, because we were predicting a quarterback to the Detroit Lions there.
Yeah.
Because obviously, Goff isn't going to be your guy for the future. You're going to draft somebody. He's going to sit behind him. Maybe you learn for a year or two, and then you insert them. I just didn't think Hendon Hooker was going to be that guy, because Will Levis was available when they were picking still.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, if Detroit gets their hands on him, I am coming on the show and taking my victory lap, because I called that. But obviously, they went a different route. They went the Kentucky rival with Hendon Hooker from Tennessee.
Valid. All right, let's go with the Browns next. So Cedric Tillman, the wide receiver. I'm not even going to pronounce that second name. It's like Sakayaka, whatever. DeJuan Jones, the tackle out of Ohio State. I think it's a really, really underwhelming prospect. I think he's too big. Does not move very well for his size. Projects for me more of a backup. Isaiah McGuire is okay. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, a quarterback. If you weren't paying a fully guaranteed contract to Deshaun, I would get taking a flyer on a late-round quarterback, because if Deshaun ends up not being able to return to form that we think he was before the suspension and all that, then you have a cheap quarterback. You can move off Deshaun. The cap hits fine. You're good. But you're fully guaranteed his contract. So you can't move off him for the next 4 years.
No, you kind of stuck yourself now, too.
So it doesn't matter if DTR is good or not. It does not matter at all.
You wasted a pick.
You just basically just drafted a backup for the next 3 or 4 years.
You wasted a
You
pick.
can go get a backup. Brandon Allen's on the market. Case Keenum. AJ McCarron's still in the XFL. You can go find a backup. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Ben DiNucci's playing his ass off in the XFL, and I think I'd rather have him.
Yeah. And I don't even mind DTR. It doesn't make a ton of sense. And then the Washington Commanders. Are you really, here's the picks on the board, you're really going to roll the dice on Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett when Will Levis was available when you picked?
Yeah, that's...
Hendon Hooker was available when you picked. Decent quarterbacks that are better than the two you have were available when you selected.
Them passing on Levis was interesting to me.
And then they took a lanky, wiry, thin DB with their first pick in Emmanuel Forbes. Who is your number one team that you have to beat in your division?
The Eagles.
The Philadelphia Eagles. Who is your number one DB going to be matched up against? A.J. Brown. Emmanuel Forbes is going to get bodied at bare minimum twice a year against the best team in your division.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah.
Every year.
That game that you have to win.
Doesn't make a ton of sense. The only pick that I really like out of these first 5 here is KJ Henry. I thought they got decent value at their 5th pick there with their 5th rounder. He's a pretty big D lineman. Needs some refinement, but I think he's a big, strong athlete. Projects decently well in about a year or two if he can develop. 'Cause Rivera's a decent defensive head coach, but it doesn't make a ton of sense. A team that you clearly need a quarterback, you need offense, and you just go hard into defense and line play, and it's just like, what are we doing?
Well, also,
Beating around the bush.
Even outside of A.J. Brown, the Cowboys have good weapons.
CeeDee Lamb's a good one. And look, now CeeDee's not the big physical receiver that that A.J. Brown is, but CeeDee can go make up some 50-50 balls. So
Either way. It's going to be some tough sledding in Washington, I feel like.
I'm not a fan of their draft. So let's recap here. The winners, we got Pittsburgh, Philly, and Seattle. The losers, Detroit, Cleveland, and Washington. Again, to clarify, not the 3 best drafts, not the 3 worst drafts, just 3 notable ones that we wanted to talk about. Talk about what we liked, what we didn't like about those drafts. But, let's just going to jump into some news.
Time for the news?
Yeah, we've been all football, so let's jump into some news. Let's veer away from football a little bit, right? I think we've had enough football, and we'll continue to get into some more football in the third segment here. Let's take a little breather. Do four stories here, none of them football. We'll start in baseball, right? Yankees, they're in last place right now. The Buccos, however, your Pittsburgh Pirates are actually in first place, just like everybody predicted, right? The Yankees are obviously underwhelming. Aaron Judge just went to the 10-day IL. I don't want to talk about it. My fantasy team is in absolute shambles. Need more Pirates on my roster, less Yankees, but whatever.
Who would have thought?
Well, I mean, I would have thought. I'm not very good at fantasy baseball, whatever. But anyway, I would have never thought that the teams would be in their respective last and first place. What do you make of the Yankees? Is it Aaron Boone? I mean, they have the talent. Is it the coaching?
It's got to be the coaching and the methodology behind building that team over the last couple of years, right?
I feel like we've said it a bunch. They try to equal out the strikeouts with the home runs. I think you need to walk more. I need to get on base more. I think Anthony Volpe's actually good because he's more of a hit for average, steal a base type of guy. I think he's good for that team in the long run, but for some reason it's just not rounding into shape.
Well, you need a team full of those guys, right? If one guy gets on base and then you can't play like the game of baseball of how it's meant to be played, move runners over, get them into scoring position, and then
hit
score them.
Right.
It's just like they've totally sold out on a method of baseball that can work, but is not consistent.
I don't think it can work long term to win you titles. I think for me it's a lot of like building around like a guy in the NBA who just scores 40, doesn't really assist much, doesn't play a ton of defense, right?
Yeah.
Can go win you like 65 games in the regular season because like on a Tuesday night when you're on your second of a back-to-back and he comes into town and you're just like, all right, dude, we don't got anything for you. Like, go put up 45. That can go win you 65 games in the regular season. 7-game series doesn't work out like that, right? So it's like, could the Yankees slug their way to first place and get to the playoffs? Yeah, I don't think it's sustainable to win, though. And it's not even winning in regular season games right now.
Yeah, and you're getting to that point now where we've been through a month of baseball. You got to start digging yourself out of a hole if you are in a hole.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Because I'm not going to say that. I mean, the baseball season's long, so really it's not that hard to jump positions right now. But I mean, you have to start putting it together at some point.
Well, you don't want to look up in 2 months and be like, dude, we are 14 games back.
Right.
Like, that's where you're like, well, now we have to go on a winning streak. They got to go on a losing streak for like 3 months. And then we'll be close.
Then it gets chippy. Yeah.
Right. You could fall out of contention really quick, and that's what we're looking to avoid. Story number 2 here. Your New Jersey Devils winning a tough Game 7 at home to defeat and eliminate the Rangers. We said it. Patrick Kane to the Rangers seemed a little bit. Yeah, you get the stars, but they didn't have enough like tough guys, enough enforcers. Right. A little bit too cute. And I think the Devils, a younger, more talented team, had a little bit more energy.
Yeah.
Played a little bit tougher, to be honest with you, and they win Game 7. The Rangers are out. We'll get to the next story about the Bruins being out. It's just wild NHL playoffs.
Well, the Devils' defense and goaltending has been insane too, especially in these last 2-3 games. I know I caught Game 7 when it did happen.
Yeah, they went 4-0, by the way.
I think a big part of the NHL playoffs, and really what you see when teams go on tears and end up winning the cup, is the goaltending, is the defense, is the physicality. Yeah. You got to be able to play with a team that's physical. You got to be able to get the puck out of your zone when you need to, and you have to be able to back check like really, really well. Yeah. And you look at the Penguins when they went back to back in 2016, then of course in 2017. Fleury played out of his mind in 2016 until he got hurt, and then, Murray stepped in. And then Murray played out of his mind down the stretch in 2017. So it really comes down to goaltending, and right now the Devils just have it figured out.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is a lot about goaltending here. Story number 3 here, again, the Florida Panthers I touched on earlier. Defeat the Bruins overtime in Game 7 on the road in Boston. Boston set a record for the most regular season wins of any hockey team in NHL history, and the Panthers go in and upset them.
Yeah.
Berserk.
In the first round.
Barstool was beside themselves right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Big Boston organization. They're beside themselves.
And it feels good. It feels good. I'm not a big Bruins guy.
Not a big Bruins guy. I hate the Bruins.
It feels good when they get chopped down a little early, but I didn't see it coming. Usually they can just pound the other team into the ice. Yeah, it's over and over, night after night. They're going to out physical you, and they're just going to hit you and out hit you probably by 10 to 15 hits a game.
They always seem to have like the best goalie for no reason, right? Like Tim Thomas, Tuukka Rask.
Yeah.
Whoever they have now is pretty good as well. But the Panthers were scrappy. That's a scrappy hockey team. And here's how I know. We said it before. Here's how I know that the Penguins did not deserve to go to the playoffs. That would have been a sweep. That would have been a 4-game sweep if we went and played against Boston.
Yeah.
Easily. I don't even think we get a game that we lose by a goal or less. Or I guess a goal, right? Or win.
Yeah.
I think we would lose every single game. We would get swept, lose every single game by 2+ goals. And the Panthers go in and win in 7 games. In overtime, on the road.
Yeah, and they have a lot
impressive.
of that like quick, fast play method where it's just we're gonna dump the puck, we're gonna go chase it, we're gonna hit you around the boards, we're gonna forecheck really well, and then we're gonna get the puck out and kind of, I don't know, really put an emphasis on passing and
it's a good hockey team.
Put up accurate shots and put pucks towards the net. That's the biggest thing in the playoffs. It's so hard to get pucks on the net because you have everybody that's laying down in front of slap shots. Everybody's trying to block a shot in the playoffs, and that's why I love playoff hockey. But you're not going to score unless you are throwing every single opportunity you have towards the goal.
I agree. Story number 4 here. One fighting championship, which is kind of like the only real rival right now to UFC. Mixed martial arts, they don't have weight cuts, they have a couple different rules, stuff like that. They stated that they were pursuing Francis Ngannou. They are no longer pursuing Francis Ngannou to fight in one fighting championship. He hasn't fought in over 400 days. He's not in the UFC anymore. Won't take the John Jones fight. That's why he basically got kicked out of the UFC to begin with. It seems to me, and look, it's easy to say it from this side of the desk, right? When you're not looking at John Jones in the face or Cyril Gahn or whatever, one of these big dudes that could absolutely light you up like a Christmas tree. But you work your way to the top. He finally gets heavyweight champion of the world, and then he backs down. Like, does it not seem like he was just kind of there to get the title, get the fame, get the money, and then just go kind of live off that?
It does.
It's what it seems like to me.
And it's weird because you don't usually see that path from guys that are that like ultra competitive.
All that and the dedication. I mean, the man fled his own country, and I don't even know where he's from. So I watched Joe Rogan. He like flees a country. He's like on the run for days. He's like swimming. He's like hiding, sleeping in the woods. I don't even know. And then he goes to a different country, stays there for like a month, and he comes here. Crazy story. Go watch Joe Rogan on it. That did not do it justice, by the way, that little synopsis I gave you. But the dedication to get here and then to fight, to work your way up, to win against Stipe, to beat Cyril Gahn in the way that he did, to finally get the championship, and then to just back. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't understand it. It's not like...
It's rare from a guy like that.
It's not the usual path that you see these ultra-competitive athletes take. It really isn't.
No.
Usually they can't get enough. Usually the problem is they fight for too long and they end up like tarnishing their own reputation because
towards the end where it's just ugly. You're like, oh,
it's like
stop fighting. Yeah,
stop.
Yeah, exactly. Like, go just go interview people or something, please.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Take a job, like, I don't know, score the damn fight. I don't know, referee a little bit, do something else than fight. But no, this is like one of those situations where they just walk away in their prime. Weird.
I don't get it.
It's weird.
I don't know. Hopefully, it comes back. We'll see.
Who knows?
That's all we got for the news.
Yeah, well, guys, stick around. Third segment is upcoming, and like we said, we will have more NFL to talk. A little Anthony Richardson and Will Levis kind of comparing the two and just giving you a breakdown of what that draft looked like and what happened there. Anthony Richardson, of course, going number, 4?
4 to the Colts.
Number 4 overall to the Colts.
Levis 33 to the Titans.
Following all the way to the second round was Will Levis. So we will discuss all of that on the other side of the break. Let's go. Third segment, the issue, May 4th, Thursday, like normal. But this segment, we will have some NFL draft recap, just prolonged throughout the show. A little discussion on Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. Obviously, two quarterbacks that I think kind of swapped places in most people's mind before the draft, and then obviously the draft happened and things cascaded. But if you haven't yet, go to theissuesports.com, sign up for the newsletter there. Right on the homepage, you just type the email in, click sign up, and you will start receiving our newsletters. They come out every Wednesday. This last one was fantastic. Tim works his ass off on them. So go ahead and subscribe.
Stop. Thank you. It's actually about Will Levis, so there you go. So that's actually a perfect little segue. So there's this perception that Will Levis dropped. Woe is him. He's screwed. And Anthony Richardson gets the 4th overall pick, and he's going to light the world on fire, right? So now, first contract money-wise, yeah, Anthony Richardson's going to be a little happier than Will Levis, right? Is what it is. They're both going to make a very, very comfortable living, millions of dollars, yada, yada, yada. Good stuff. You make more of your money on your second contract anyway, so depending on how they do, that's what will really determine financial career success. So outside of just the contract thing, like I said, there's this perception that Levis falls, he's now worse off. That's not exactly true. So let's start with Anthony Richardson. He's going to get a rookie quarterback, a rookie head coach. Rookie head coach, he is a rookie quarterback. An offensive line is very underwhelming outside of guard, and we all know that guard is not necessarily the big ticket to winning. More left tackle, center is what we're looking for. The weapons outside of Michael Pittman are very underwhelming, and even Michael Pittman is known more as a jump ball guy, not necessarily a guy that separates, not exactly a very crisp route runner, separates, not a burner down the field. So an underwhelming receiving core, underwhelming offensive line, rookie coach, owner who is just constantly meddling. He ran the last, 4 quarterbacks out of town. Or Will Levis on the flip side. Derrick Henry. Now, the offensive line is definitely in a rebuild, but you go get Peter Skoronski. Hopefully, he could be a piece you build around. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see. Did I see Derrick Henry? Yeah, Derrick Henry, offensive line. The defense is okay. The front 7 is really nice. Secondary could use some work, but they got some young guys coming back in the secondary. Hopefully, they can make a difference. And you get a fantastic head coach in Mike Vrabel. What I view as a top 7 to 8 coach in the league. What they've been able to do over the last 3 years, right? Number 1 seed, go into Arrowhead and upset Mahomes the year before. With the roster that they have, that's a second place roster. That's a wild card roster, and they've been the 1 seed, the 2, the 3, winning playoff games, going on the road, winning playoff games. So what they've been able to do is really, really impressive. So there's this view that Levis falls, he's now going to have a worse career, he's worse off. Richardson goes higher, he's automatically destined for more success. That's not always the case. We know that these quarterbacks, if you take, let's go 4 quarterbacks in the first round, if you do in a draft, we know that one's going to be a stud, right? Like from the Trevor Lawrence draft, for example. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. There's actually 5 there. 1, Trevor Lawrence, stud. 2, really going to depend where you land. Like Justin Fields, I think if he lands somewhere else, probably a lot better. Right now, he's dealing with average weapons, bad offensive line, leadership's right? Mac Jones lands with New England, right? He's exactly what you would expect from a limited quarterback that lands in New England. Kind of limited, pretty efficient, a little bit feisty because they're not really surrounded with a ton of weapons. Like exactly what we expected based on where he lands, right? So same thing here. We think probably between Young, Stroud, Richardson, we'll throw Levis in the first round for sake of discussion. We know one is probably maybe not a stud like a Trevor Lawrence, but is going to be a viable NFL starter for the next, let's go 6 years, right? Because the number 1 guy that we think will be that guy isn't necessarily the most durable. So we're going to the next 6 years, Bryce Young will be a bona fide starter. Everybody else, complete roll of the dice. Complete roll of the dice. Depends on where you land. And if this morning, if I wake up Will Levis, I'm happier about where I landed than if I wake up as Anthony Richardson. I'm just saying it right now.
It's a way better environment. Way better.
Not to mention you're in Nashville. I'll rip that. That's nice.
Plus.
Yeah, we like that.
I'll take Nashville over Indianapolis. Guys, look, it's going to be one of those... I feel like this is one of those drafts where it's so cloudy right now, and it was so clouded during draft day, and it's really tough to project like the difference between these 2 quarterbacks. Obviously, we had Levis higher, but really the cards could fall either way.
Right.
I feel like in a couple years, you're going to look back on the 2023 draft, and it's going to be like, oh, well, of course, blank, fill in the blank was better.
Right.
And I'm really not sure which one. Now, we've talked that the situation has to be, like, perfect for Will Levis to be inserted into. He didn't have all the pieces at Kentucky. You're not going to get all the pieces wherever you go in the NFL, but at least you have more of a semblance of something being built in the right direction in Tennessee than you do in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis is full rebuild.
They haven't been able to figure it out since Andrew Luck left.
Yeah, that's full rebuild.
So I'm not sure that Anthony Richardson, who is a fine quarterback, but I'm not sure he possesses the the strengths and the capabilities to lead an organization into their next big guy.
Right.
And like transcend that organization into what they would like to be. And obviously what that would be is vying for a Super Bowl spot. Now we're not going to know for 17 weeks. 17 weeks is how far we are from NFL kickoff. So it's going to be interesting throughout like spring mini camp. And then you're going to get into, well, first you'll have the rookie camps, and then you'll have OTAs and all the training camps.
Men's training camp, yeah.
Preseason. Obviously, you're probably going to see both of these guys during preseason.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. I, for one, think that Levis will end up having the better career, but I think that Anthony Richardson has, like...
more upside. Anthony Richardson's ceiling is higher, but I think Will Levis is in a better spot.
Because he is able to extend plays with his feet. He has way more legs than Will Levis does.
So right now, let me ask you a question. Justin Fields or Mac Jones?
I'm going to take Justin Fields.
See, this is going to prove my point. I would take Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is a more accurate, more consistent distributor of the football. I think Justin Fields right now is a highlight reel. I think Anthony Richardson is going to be wildly athletic, jump over people, run a 4-3 down the sideline for a 34-yard touchdown. But I think Will Levis, with a little bit of coaching, a little bit of grooming, could be a more accurate, more consistent player.
I agree with that, but I think the game is moving more towards you run, can you do both?
Yeah,
and I think Richardson does more of that, and I think Justin Fields does more of that.
That's fair. I think it's closer between Fields and Mac Jones. But like Levis, I think, is going to be a significantly more consistent player.
And let's not forget, and
he can also move a little bit.
I was going to say, let's not act like Levis can't run.
Yeah, no. Levis is a much better athlete than Mac Jones. That's just kind of the first one that came to my head because personally, like I said, I would take Mac Jones. I know what I'm going to get every Sunday. I'm going to get 67% completion percentage, 200 yards. Might not be the most flashy 200 yards, but 200 yards. Probably a touchdown or two, maybe a pick. Right? Yeah. I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Justin Fields, I can go get 4 picks, no problem. Yeah, he might run one in from 80 yards out. Sweet. It's very inconsistent, very frenetic.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of like the run versus quarterbacks either. I like a guy that can pass, that can throw from the pocket primarily, but then also has the legs to fall back on, and when he uses them is special with them.
And that's what I said about Mahomes. It's not the spectacular that sets Mahomes apart. Yes, he could do that. It's the fact that in between his spectacular plays is just stretches of mundane domination.
Which is needed, though. That's so needed.
Exactly. Right? It's where you don't even realize it, but you look up, he's hit his last 9 for the last 86 yards. Yep. He's got a touchdown, and he's just in total command. It's like cruise control. Get it, hit your back foot, out, boom, there's 9 yards. Get it, back foot, out, 4 yards. Like, it's just mundane, boring, consistent, right? That's what Brady always was. People always dink and dunk Brady. Yeah, it was brutal to be on the other side of it, though.
Yeah, and then when you need it, Mahomes can rip one off for like 25 yards, rush, get out of bounds real nice. Doesn't lower the shoulder like Josh Allen does. Stays a little more healthy that way, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But guys, that is all we have for you today. So make sure you are going to the social media, checking out everything that we put out throughout the week. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of it. All the links can be found in the description of the episode in the link tree, or they are direct linked right there. So just go look what you're searching for, click on it, hit a subscribe, hit a like. We really appreciate it. And guys, that was The Issue.